Sports Talk Chicago. Here with Jon Zaghloul, and we are back and ready for today's special guest. She's the former Cubs beat writer for MLB.com and the author of the Big 50 Men and Moments that made the Chicago Cubs. Please welcome Carrie Muskat to the program. Carrie, it's great to have you on. How are you?
Very good, John. Thank you. Everything's good.
So, Carrie, what's your reaction to the Cubs' recent win streak?
Well, as we're talking now, they're 17-17, and they're 3.5 games back. And the one thing I learned over the course of covering baseball for as many years as I did is that the worst team to cover is a 500 team, because you never know. Either they win a couple, they lose a couple. You're just right in the middle, and it's just, I would rather cover a team that was just horrible. I mean, obviously you want to cover a team that's doing great, but I just a 500 team is so hard to cover. It's just so middle, nothing. It's just tough. So I give the writers credit.
That was like 2009, right? How was that?
2009 when yeah, I try and forget the bad years. We sort of focus, 2015 was super exciting. 2016 was incredible, and it's not quite been the same since.
Well, what about the good things for this team? Kris Bryant's doing well. Did you expect that performance from him so far?
Oh, absolutely. If he's healthy, he can be in the talk, regarding MVP status. I mean, if he's healthy, and that was the biggest problem he had last year. Right now, I think manager David Ross is going to have a tough time fielding a healthy nine, considering how many guys have been hurt. I saw where Jake Marisnick was just injured with hamstring injury. He had difficulties playing last year because of injuries. Everyone's got little aches and pains. They were keeping Javi Baez out because of a back. Who knows? I mean, the Cubs are not that deep in their system, and this is going to really test the depth, which is why they might end up being just a 500 team, which is going to be horrible. But yeah, the injuries are really going to hurt them.
If they stay around that mark moving forward, should they trade Bryant? Should they start the rebuild near the trade deadline?
I'm gonna take the fifth on trade talk. I'm really horrible with that stuff because the players to me are people, and they're not just players. And I realize that sports talk, everyone wants to debate this and that. Right now, I look at Kris Bryant as a really good player, third baseman, outfielder now. He's played more outfield games. He's got an incredible amount of value to the Cubs, and it's going to be just a huge decision that they have to make by the trade deadline. I just don't know where this organization's going. I really don't. And I realize that with the pandemic and the costs, and having to deal with certain expenses, I just don't. I honestly don't know. So I'm hoping they keep him. That's as a fan. Now that I'm not a beat writer anymore, I can say this as a fan. I hope they keep him.
Have you ever felt like this before when you've covered the Cubs over the years? That they have no hope or they have no direction?
Oh no, it's not that they have no direction, or I think there's plenty of direction. I think the issue is I never understand. You as we never have a chance to really look at the books.
Sure.
You can't really get a good feel as to what management is looking at. There might be some decisions that have to be made because of X number of dollars that are in the kitty, that X number of dollars that they're getting. It's so much better now with the Cubs being able to have fans at Wrigley Field. That should help things in terms of expenses and the money. I don't understand the business side of it very well. So I guess I'm now that I don't have to cover the team on a daily basis, I guess looking as from the outside as a fan, I'm curious to see what they do have a direction. I know Jed Hoyer's got to figure that out, but I just don't know. I don't know personally where it's going.
Carrie Muskat here on Sports Talk Chicago. Carrie, are you concerned about the Cubs starting pitching right now?
Oh yes, absolutely. How could you? I mean, what in the world? Kyle Hendricks should not have an ERA of 19.29 in the first inning. I mean, that's just unheard of. It's just not right. Jake Arrieta, he's on the injured list with a minor problem with his thumb. Trevor Williams, I think if he could go deep in games, he'd be fine. Same with Zach Davies. The really the fun part about this early part of the first 34 games for these guys is watching the players like Adbert Alzolay and Keegan Thompson and Justin Steele. I mean, those guys have been incredible, and it's so nice to see pitchers that are in the Cubs organization actually contributing and pitching well. And that's because that's been the knock against their minor league system and their development system. And just to be able to see three guys who are coming up and are contributing, and that's been fun to watch. So I'm not total Pollyanna here, but I do like to look at the positives, and that's what one thing that I would take from this early start.
Did you expect these problems in the rotation before the season?
Oh, well, I didn't know enough about Williams or Trevor Williams or Zach Davies really to judge those. I did know that I did feel that they would need a really good defense behind them because they're ground ball pitchers.
Right.
So they're going to need, they're going to need Javi, and they're going to at short, and they're going to need good play at second base from whoever is there. I mean, it's they needed a good defense, which I don't think has hurt them. I just who knows? Maybe it's the cold weather. Who knows what's going on with these guys? I just I'd like to see them go deeper into games. I'm sure so would David Ross, but and that's not happening. I'd hated to see Yu Darvish go because he was so much fun to cover and really provided just such an ace to this rotation. And I'm just not sure Zach Davies is the guy to replace him.
What made Darvish fun?
He just has a great sense of humor, and his English is much better than he lets on. And he just, we would talk about. I talked to him about his kids. We'd have little subtle jokes every once in a while. And to see what I also liked is watching how he would interact with Victor Caratini, the catcher. I mean, here you've got a guy from Puerto Rico, and you've got somebody from Japan, and they're able to communicate so well. And it was just really fun to watch, and how much trust that Darvish put into Caratini and his pitch calling. You can see how Caratini is doing so well with the Padres. The fact that he caught the no-hitter, Joe Musgrove's no-hitter. I mean, it's just little interactions like that's kind of fun to watch.
Was that trade that they made with Darvish and Caratini a mistake?
Oh, I don't know if it's a mistake. This is something that I don't. With the business side of the team, that's something I don't understand. So it's if the Padres wanted the pitching, wanted the pair. The Cubs decided they needed to trim payroll. So if it's a mistake, I think we'll know by the end of the year.
What's your expectation for them moving forward for the rest of the season?
Well, like I say, with the injuries right now, it's going to be tough. They need to get guys healthy. It's just funny to see how well they played against the Dodgers in those 3 games, and then to maybe not, and then to see them not play as well after on Sunday's game against the Pirates. It just they need consistency. It could be the problem is once again the problem at the top of the order. In 2016 when they had Dexter Fowler up there as a regular, the lineup fell into place very nicely. It could be that they've tried Jock Peterson, Contreras, Ian Happ. When Ian Happ comes back, maybe that'll help get the leadoff spot going. It's just, I'm sure David Ross would love to have 9 guys that he could ride in, boom, and go. And it's just, it hasn't been that way. The one thing that has been fun to watch is to see some guys emerge. I mean, you look at a guy like Matt Duffy, who would have expected he'd be contributing as much as he has. He's batting 288. I mean, who would have thought that? Eric Sogard's come through in some clutch situations, but so you have to give management credit. People can diss management for certain things that they did, but you also have to give management credit when they can find people like that, like a Duffy, who can come in and contribute.
Carrie Muskat here on Sports Talk Chicago. Carrie, tell me about the Big 50. How'd you come up with it?
Actually, I get to defer to Triumph Publishing. They contacted me, and it's a part of a series that they're doing with other major league teams, and also I believe they did a Chicago Bears and a Chicago Blackhawks book as well. And it's just they called and they said, would you be interested? And I was watching a Cubs game one day and sat down and was able to come up with 50 men and moments pretty easily. And there was some debate. My husband and I had some debate as to how we were going to arrange this. And so he used to vend at Wrigley and sit in the bleachers. So he's got a little different perspective on things, and was a bigger fan than I was. So then put it together. I did cheat a little bit. There's more than 50 chapters in this because I wanted to include some people like we got Hank Sauer, who was the MVP. Sure. Snuck him in there, so I was able to sneak in a couple extra sidebars. Sean Dunston, I've always wanted to talk to the guys who did the Sean-o-meter. So that doesn't really qualify as like a big 50 moment, but a lot of fans remember that, and it was something that was important and something I thought should be included. So,
which moments or players barely missed the cut?
Well, I know Ron Coomer, the Cubs broadcaster, he's a little upset he didn't make the Big 50. I had to explain to him he only played for the team for a year, and it was hard to find enough moments. So, no, I think if I would have liked to have done something with Randy Hundley, maybe. I think he's an interesting story, in terms of how long he played there and caught there and dealt with the heat and dealt with the day games. That would have been interesting to do. I probably would have done a bigger chapter on Hank Sauer, maybe, if I wanted to include that. I sort of, instead of doing a chapter on each no-hitter, I have just one chapter on no-hitters. So you could have expanded on Carlos Zambrano, and he's obviously worth a book himself. So, there's some other people like that.
How'd you balance the old and the new in the book? Because I thought you did a great job of that.
Well, thank you. I think one of the things we kind of wanted to do was sort of reach out to just different generations of Cub fans, so maybe your grandmother's favorite team was the 69 Cubs, so we had to make sure, there's legends like Ernie Banks and Ron Santo and Billy Williams and Fergie Jenkins. You've got to get them in there, or maybe you've got somebody that that cheered for the 84 team, and they all remembered Ryan Sandberg and Rick Sutcliffe when Sutcliffe came over, and maybe you're just like a late to the action fan, so you're just a fan with like 2016, and that's your era of Cubdom. And so hopefully this book kind of reaches all different generations of fans that have followed the team.
What's your favorite old moment pre-2000 that you put in the book?
Pre-2000? That's easy. That's Kerry Wood's 20 strikeout game. That was the most amazing game to cover and to be witness to. And if I had to do a Big 50 like personal moments, that would be my number one, because it just was so unexpected. It's his fifth career start. He'd struggled with command in the minors. This was his first complete game, and I just love the fact that at the end of the game, he does the fist pump, and a lot of people think he does that because of the strikeouts. He did that because he didn't walk anybody. And it's, for him, he'd been battling that sort of stigma that he couldn't get through a game. But here he was so pumped about that's what he was celebrating. He had no idea how many strikeouts he had. So it was just that game will always epitomize what the great part about baseball is you never know what you're going to see when you go to the ballpark. And that's what sort of keeps you going when you follow the game for a long time, is you just never can't even imagine what you're going to see that day.
When did you know that day that this was something special?
Well, I was so frantic I was working for I was a stringer for the Associated Press, and I was also working for USA Today. Well, I was doing some stuff for USA Today as well. And during the game, the folks from USA Today called me and they said, "Hey, we need a page one story on this," and I said, "Okay." And I'm trying to do this is pre cell phone days. So they're, trying to reach you, and they're, calling the press box, and then you're trying to do the AP story, and of course you've got with AP you're dealing with editors in New York who are counting the strikeouts, saying I need a couple of paragraphs now, I need this. So it was really kind of frantic, but it was just really so much fun, and just a May drizzly day, and here you've got this right-hander out there just blowing the Astros away. It was a really special day. And there's all these little sidebar things, like the high school teacher who had brought the K cards for the fans out in the left field bleachers. He didn't bring 20 of them, but he'd kind of skipped school and brought these cards because he was a big fan of Kerry Wood, thought that this guy was going to really be something. Well, and then he was able to con some fans into painting a K's on their bare chests to sort of keep up the count, so that they could do the whole 20 out there in left field. And that, just little things like that. And if you, the Cubs folks, their production company did a documentary on this, sort of a look back at it. And part of the story is, and I didn't even realize this at the time, but one of the things that the guy also brought is he had basketball jerseys with the number 34 on it. So he'd made sure that people were wearing the right jerseys out there, in honor of Woody, that who wore number 34.
What's the Ernie Broglio story all about? I hate to shift like that, but.
Well, it's just, poor Ernie. He was a good guy. He was a good pitcher at the time. And the Cubs were frustrated with Lou Brock. They just weren't seeing what they wanted to see from him at the time, and decided they needed a pitcher. They needed somebody to come in and help them. Unfortunately, Ernie was also hurt. So when but the Cubs, I don't think realized that. I don't think they were as thorough, perhaps, when they, as they are now when they make trades in terms of vetting people. But he'd won 18 games in '63 with the Cardinals, so it wasn't as if he was a horrible pitcher. It's just that he never quite lived up to it, and Lou Brock went on and had a amazing career with the Cardinals. So and Brock, the nice thing is that at least Brock, the two of them did some signings, I guess, together. And Broglio, one of the things he told Brock was that, I'm nobody without you, and they were able to have a good laugh about it, afterwards. But some of the trades work, some of the trades don't. You just have to wait.
Was that the worst trade in Cubs history?
Yes, yeah. But again, but it's, you have to, who they at the time, that's who they thought,
right,
was okay. So at the time, that's what they needed, was the pitching. And Brock, I'm just not sure. I'm trying to check real quick on his minor league numbers, because I remember he wasn't doing very well in terms of being in the minor leagues with the team. Yeah, he didn't do very well at all. So, and he didn't show the speed, I think, that they really wanted. So, it's time to go.
Who's your favorite player that you profiled in the book?
Well, I can't say that because if it's kind of like picking your favorite child, you can't do that. I I have a lot of players that I really have helped me a lot over the years in terms of being accommodating. I was really happy that Anthony Rizzo was willing to do the forward. I've been to a few of his charity events, such as the walkathon that he does down in Florida in his hometown, and just to see how people react to him and just to watch him, and just here's a guy who's was given a diagnosis of cancer when he was just a teenager in the minor leagues, thinking he's got this bright future ahead of him, and all of a sudden has to be hit with that kind of reality. And he survived, and now for him to go 0 for 4, I mean, seriously, that's not a big deal. He's, had to deal with cancer. And I've watched him deal with, go into hospitals and do visits, and to see the way the kids react to him and to see the hope that he gives them. I mean, that's really something special. But I'm a big fan of Sean Dunston. I love watching him and watching him kind of mature over the years, and then finally got to interview Sean's son, Sean Dunston Jr., when the Cubs drafted him. So I never thought I'd last that long, but I did. So, but I have a lot of favorites. The guys know who they are. It's always fun. Watching Jake Arrieta, it was fun. Alfonso Soriano actually was a real favorite. We had a lot of good conversations, and I think he was just so smart and really saw a lot of things and took a lot of the young players under his wing to help them. It's little things like that if I could do another, I think Soriano would be another player who maybe might deserve a chapter.
Carrie, before we finish up today, last question. Where could we find this? How can we read more?
Well, I know that you can find it at triumphbooks.com. The publisher has the book available on the website. Obviously, also Amazon.com. I believe Barnes & Noble has a website, barnesandnoble.com. You can find it there. It's I try to keep the chapters short so that people wouldn't get too bored and they can go, from one to another. I wish we could have had a little more art. I would have loved to have more photos in there, but no, the book turned out well, and hopefully Cub fans will enjoy it.
Well, Carrie, thank you so much for joining me. Really appreciate the time, and best wishes here with the book. It's a great read, and we'll make sure to promote it on this show as well.
Great. Appreciate it, John. Thank you very much.